Hi, I'm Emma Clark. I'm 29 years old and I make cakes for a living in Seattle. For 2 whole years, I planned the wedding of my dreams. I thought about the flowers, the music, the cake I would make myself. My boyfriend and I worked so hard to make everything perfect. We thought my mom and dad would sit in the front row and watch me get married. But then everything changed with one text message. My dad sent me words that made my heart break. They would not come to my wedding. Why? Because they were taking my little brother on a fancy trip to Big Sur instead. A beach vacation, they said, was more special than watching me get married. Those words hurt so much. Before we continue, kindly subscribe and drop your name in the comments. We'll be giving shout-outs in our next video. It made me remember all the times they forgot about me when I was little. My brother always got everything. Always. I sat on my bed holding my phone and crying. My mom sent another message saying the same thing. She didn't even sound sorry. I felt so angry and so sad at the same time. That day I decided something important. I would not let them make me feel bad on my special day. I would not cry anymore. I did something brave. Something that would make them wish they had come to my wedding. And when they found out what I did, everything in their life changed. Want to know what happened? Keep watching to learn how I stood up for myself and made them understand what they lost. If your family ever made you feel small or left out, click that subscribe button and tell me your story in the comments. Let's help each other feel strong. Stay with me to see what happened when my parents picked a vacation over my wedding day. When I was growing up in Seattle, life felt really happy at first. We lived in a small house near the water. My dad, Robert Clark, worked at a bank. My mom, Susan Clark, sold shoes at a store in the mall. We had fun together. We went to the beach, played card games, and ate pizza on Fridays. My baby brother, Mason Clark, was born when I was 5. He was so tiny and cute. I loved him so much. I helped Mom give him bottles and sang to him when he cried. We were a happy family. Or that's what I thought. Then one day when I was 8, things got scary. My parents started fighting at night. They yelled at each other about money and about leaving. I would hide in my closet with my hands over my ears. I was so scared they would stop being married. They stayed together, but after that, nothing felt the same. Our house became quiet and sad. Something was broken and nobody fixed it. That's when my parents started acting different. They gave all their love and time to my little brother Mason. Happened slowly. First they bought him more toys than me. Then they started going to all his things but missed mine. When I was 9, I had a big art show at school. I painted a picture of our family that took me 3 weeks. I was so excited to show my parents. But on the day of the art show, they didn't come. They took Mason to the zoo instead because he wanted to see monkeys. My teacher asked where my family was. I lied and said they were sick. I felt so embarrassed and sad. My painting hung on the wall with nobody there to see it. Mom said sorry later, but it didn't help. She said Mason was little and needed more attention. But what about me? Didn't I need attention too? I tried really hard to make them notice me. I joined the school choir. Got good grades. I helped clean the house without being asked. But no matter what I did, they only looked at Mason. They went to his baseball practice. They clapped at his spelling tests. They took pictures of everything he did. But when I showed them my report card with all A's, Dad just said, "Good job," and went back to reading his paper. I started to wonder if something was wrong with me. Why didn't they love me the same way? One time when I was 10, I saved all my birthday money to buy special colored pencils for drawing. I loved to draw dresses and pretty rooms. I spent every afternoon after school drawing pictures. I made a whole book of drawings to show Mom. When I finally gave it to her, she looked at it for 2 seconds. Then she said, "That's pretty, Emma, but I have to help your brother with his homework now." She put my book down and walked away. I felt like my heart cracked in half. I didn't scream or throw things. I learned that crying didn't change anything. So I kept trying harder and harder. I practiced my singing. Got better at math. I thought if I was perfect, they would finally see me. But every time I did something good, it felt like I was talking to a wall. Nobody was listening. My brother got praised for everything. I got ignored for everything. It wasn't fair. The unfair treatment wasn't just about hugs and attention. It was also about money and gifts. On Mason's birthday, they bought him a new bike with ribbons and a bell. It was shiny and blue. On my birthday, they gave me a card with $5 inside. When I asked Mom why, she said, "Mason is younger. You're a big girl now. You understand, right? Big girl." Those words made me feel cold inside. Being bigger didn't mean I didn't want a nice gift too. I started keeping track in my head. Every time they chose him over me. Every time they forgot about my thing to go to his thing. By the time I was 11, I had stopped asking them to come to my events. But the hurt never went away. Stayed inside me like a heavy rock. I watched them smile so big at Mason's school play while I sat alone at mine with just my teacher watching. It made me feel like I was invisible in my own family. Those years changed me. I learned to take care of myself. I learned not to need them. But deep down, I always wondered why I wasn't good enough. It wasn't about the toys or the bikes. It was about feeling unloved. I carried that feeling with me everywhere I went. I didn't know that years later, all that pain would explode in a way nobody expected. By the time I was a teenager, I had given up trying to get their attention. When I got older, my parents kept treating Mason like he was the only kid in the family. In high school, the difference between us was huge. My dad, still working at the bank, and my mom, still at the shoe store, spent all their time and money on my brother. When Mason turned 14, they bought him a laptop. A brand new, expensive laptop just because he asked for it. Me. When I turned 14, they gave me a used phone that barely worked. "Emma, you're smart. You'll figure it out," Dad said. He thought I should be happy with hand-me-downs. I wasn't asking for a laptop. I just wanted them to care about me the same way. When I was a senior in high school, something amazing happened. I got accepted to a cooking school with a big scholarship. They would pay for most of my classes. I ran home so excited I could barely breathe. I thought finally they would be proud of me. But when I told Mom, she was looking at her phone. "Oh, that's nice, Emma. But Mason has a big basketball game on Saturday and we need to get him new shoes." She didn't even ask about my cooking school. Mason was only in 8th grade, but my parents went to every single one of his basketball games. They never missed one. My scholarship, the biggest thing that ever happened to me, was forgotten before dinner. They didn't ask what I would study or where the school was. But they spent hundreds of dollars on basketball equipment for Mason. Felt like a ghost. Like I didn't really exist. When I was 20, I moved into my own apartment. I was done living in a house where nobody saw me. I worked hard at cooking school. I stayed up late learning to make cakes and fancy desserts. I got a job at a small bakery and then started taking orders from people for weddings and parties. By the time I was 25, I opened my own tiny cake shop. My first big order was for a wedding. I made a 4-layer cake with flowers made of frosting. It was beautiful. I invited my parents to see my shop. Dad sent a short email. "Can't make it, Emma. We're helping Mason move into his new apartment." Mason had just graduated from college. My parents didn't just help him move. They paid for his whole apartment. First month rent, furniture, everything. They gave him thousands of dollars. I stared at that email feeling sick to my stomach. My cake shop, something I built with my own hands, didn't matter to them at all. Mason soaked up all their love and money without even thinking about it. He would call Mom every day and they would talk and laugh for hours. When I called to tell Mom about a big cake order, she would say, "I'm busy. Mason needs me to help him pick out furniture." My brother wasn't mean to me. He just never noticed that he got everything while I got nothing. Dad would say, "Mason is still learning about life. You're doing fine, Emma." Fine. That word made me want to scream. I pushed myself to work harder. Took more orders. I made bigger and prettier cakes. When I was 26, a food magazine wrote a story about my shop. They called me a rising star. I printed out the article and mailed it to my parents. I waited for them to call and say they were proud. Weeks went by. Then Mom mentioned it like it was nothing. "I saw that article. It was okay. But did you see Mason's new job? He's doing really well." Mason had gotten a job as a personal trainer, and my parents told everyone they knew. They bragged about him constantly. My magazine article, my late nights, my success, none of it mattered. I stopped sending them updates about my life. But the sadness got bigger and bigger. Every time they ignored me, it hurt more. I would lie in bed at night thinking about all the ways they showed me I wasn't important. Their love was something I could never earn no matter how hard I tried. It wasn't about the money or the time. It was about the way they looked at Mason like he was everything and looked at me like I was nothing. By the time I was 27, I knew I had to stop wanting their love. But the pain was still there, hiding under everything I did. Later, my cake business was doing really well. I was making cakes for fancy parties and big events all over Seattle. People loved my designs. I made cakes that looked like gardens and castles, and even one that looked like the ocean. Every cake I finished felt like winning a prize. It showed that I was good at something even if my parents didn't care. Late nights in my bakery became my safe place. Mixing frosting and decorating cakes made me forget about feeling unwanted. When I was 27, I met Daniel Reed at a birthday party where I delivered a cake. He was funny and kind. He made me laugh so hard I snorted. We started talking and then dating. He was different from anyone I'd ever met. He listened when I talked. He asked about my day. He made me feel like I mattered. When Daniel introduced me to his parents, Carol Reed and Thomas Reed, I was nervous. I thought they would be cold like mine. But Carol hugged me the first time we met. "Emma, we're so happy to meet you," she said with a big smile. Thomas shook my hand and asked a million questions about my cakes. He wanted to know everything. Their house felt warm and full of love. We had dinners together where everyone talked and laughed. It was so different from my quiet, sad childhood home. They made me feel welcome. They made me feel seen. For the first time in my life, I felt like part of a real family. But I still tried with my own parents. I would call Mom hoping maybe this time would be different. But she would only talk about Mason. "Your brother is doing amazing. He just got a raise," Mom would say. She never asked about my business. Dad was the same. I invited him to see a cake I made for a big hotel. He said he was too busy helping Mason plan a work event. I sent them a link to a video about my bakery on a local news website. I thought they would be excited. Mom's text back said, "Good for you, Emma. We're busy helping Mason with his new house." Every single time it was the same. They chose him. They forgot me. Mason kept getting everything. They paid for his car. They gave him money when he needed it. Meanwhile, I paid for everything myself. Daniel's family filled the empty space in my heart. Carol would call me just to chat. She wanted to know about my new cake ideas. Thomas gave me advice about running a business. He treated me like a daughter. Their love gave me strength. But it didn't erase the hurt from my real parents. I invited my parents to a big event where I was getting an award for my bakery. Dad said he would come. But the day before, he canceled. "Mason needs help with something. You understand, right, Emma?" he said on the phone. His voice didn't even sound sorry. I understood, all right. I understood that I would never be important to them. I was tired of begging. Tired of hoping. Then Daniel asked me to marry him under the stars on a beach. "Emma, I want to spend my whole life with you," he said. His eyes were shiny with happy tears. I said yes and felt hope bloom in my chest. Maybe, just maybe, my wedding would be the day my parents finally showed up for me. We started planning our wedding and I sent my parents a pretty card with the date. Deep down, I still wished they would come. But what happened next broke my heart in a way I never saw coming. With our wedding only a few months away, Daniel and I started planning everything. We picked a beautiful garden in Seattle with big trees and colorful flowers everywhere. We imagined a day full of happy music, good food, and all the people we loved. Daniel took care of booking things while I planned how everything would look. I drew pictures of the tables and the flowers. For the first time in so long, I felt truly happy. But underneath my excitement, I had a tiny hope. Maybe my parents would finally come and be proud of me. I made beautiful invitations on special paper and mailed them to Robert Clark and Susan Clark, my parents. I imagined them walking me down the path between the chairs. I wrote them a note with the invitation. This is the most important day of my life. Please come. I waited and waited. Weeks passed. No answer. Finally I called Mom. My heart was beating fast. Did you get my wedding invitation? I asked, trying to sound calm. She sounded annoyed. We're really busy, Emma. Mason has plans. My stomach felt sick. What plans? I asked. Then she told me. They were taking Mason on a trip to Big Sur. A fancy vacation at the beach with expensive hotels. It's a family trip, Mom said. Like I wasn't part of the family. I felt like someone punched me. But this is my wedding. Doesn't that matter? My voice got louder. Mom sighed like I was bothering her. You'll have lots of people there, Emma. You'll be fine. Then I called Dad. It was even worse. Big Sur is a once-in-a-lifetime trip, he said. His voice was flat. He sounded like my wedding was just a normal day. Nothing special. I started yelling. Years of hurt came pouring out. Why is it always Mason? Why am I never enough for you? Dad got quiet. Then he said, Don't be dramatic, Emma. Hung up. My hands were shaking. I felt like I couldn't breathe. Their choice wasn't just about missing my wedding. It proved that I would never, ever be as important as Mason. He got the trips. He got their time. He got their love. Got nothing. That night I cried so hard I couldn't stop. I kept hearing their words over and over. Daniel found me curled up on the couch with tears running down my face. He didn't say anything at first. He just sat next to me and held my hand. They don't get to ruin your day, he said quietly. I nodded, but the pain felt like a huge weight on my chest. Carol and Thomas, Daniel's parents, called to tell us how excited they were. We can't wait to see you as a bride, Emma, Carol said. Her voice was so warm and loving. Their excitement made my parents' coldness hurt even more. I had spent my whole life trying to make my parents love me. And this was the answer. They would rather go to the beach with Mason than watch me get married. Felt final. Like a door slamming shut forever. That night I couldn't sleep. I stared at the ceiling thinking and thinking. I was done begging. Done hoping they would change. Their decision to skip my wedding for a vacation wasn't just mean. It was the last straw. I wasn't going to let them ruin my happiness. A fire started burning inside me. I didn't know exactly what I would do yet, but I knew it would be something big. Something that would make them see what they lost. The hurt was still there, but now it was mixed with something else. Anger, strength, determination. I was ready to stand up for myself. Not just for my wedding, but for every time they made me feel invisible. After many nights of thinking, I made a decision. I was done begging Robert and Susan for anything. The pain of them choosing a beach trip with Mason over my wedding still hurt so much. But I refused to let it ruin my special day. Daniel and I focused on making our wedding perfect. We picked the garden in Seattle with the big trees. I used all my design skills to plan everything. We wrote our own promises to each other. We hung lights that would glow softly at night. We made a place that felt like us. Yes, my family wouldn't be there, but I would celebrate the life I was building anyway. Carol and Thomas jumped in to help with everything. Carol spent days with me picking out flowers and decorations. Emma, this day is about you and Daniel. Make it exactly what you want, she said with kind eyes. Thomas helped us talk to the people bringing food and music. He made jokes that made me laugh when I felt stressed. They felt like real parents, the kind I always wanted. My best friend, Jennifer Martinez, who takes beautiful photos, said she would take pictures at my wedding. I'm going to make this day look like magic, Emma, Jennifer said. She was so excited. Friends from my bakery and from around Seattle all said they were coming. They filled up the empty space left by my parents and Mason. I hadn't heard anything from them. No calls, no text, just silence. Hurt. But I poured all that hurt into making my wedding day beautiful. I was determined to prove I didn't need them to be happy. The morning of the wedding came. I stood in front of the mirror in my white dress. It was simple and pretty. Daniel came in and looked at me like I was the most beautiful thing he'd ever seen. "You're perfect," he whispered. I walked down the path between the chairs and everyone stood up and clapped and cheered. Jennifer's camera clicked, catching every moment. Carol was crying happy tears and holding my hand. Thomas gave me a big proud smile. My parents weren't there. That empty space hurt. But all the love from everyone else made it smaller. Daniel and I said our promises to each other. We promised to always choose each other. Everyone clapped so loud it felt like thunder. The party after was full of laughing and dancing and joy. People kept telling us how beautiful everything was. As the night was ending, Daniel and I snuck away to be alone for a minute. We were so happy. I took out my phone to look at messages from friends. That's when I saw it. Post from my mom on social media. Posted that same day. There were pictures of her dad and Mason on a cliff by the ocean in Big Sur. Big waves behind them. They were all smiling. The caption said, "Best family vacation ever." Those words stabbed me like a knife. They didn't just skip my wedding. They posted about their trip for the whole world to see. Like I didn't exist. Like my wedding day meant nothing. I scrolled through the comments. None of their friends mentioned my wedding. It was like it never happened. I felt a new wave of hurt wash over me. Daniel saw my face and pulled me close. "They don't decide your worth," he said firmly. He nodded. Tears filled my eyes. But his words helped me feel stronger. My wedding was a huge success. Friends posted pictures online. The people who brought food and flowers posted about how beautiful it was. They called it an amazing night. The news spread fast around Seattle. I knew Robert and Susan would hear about it. Their friends would see the pictures. Their Big Sur post, the one they were so proud of, would now look bad next to all the posts about my beautiful wedding. I imagined them seeing the photos and realizing they had made a big mistake. Mason would see it too. He would learn that my wedding happened and was wonderful without them. I didn't want to hurt them, but I hoped they would finally understand what they had done. The love around me, Daniel's strength, Carol and Thomas's kindness, Jennifer's photos, lifted me up higher than my parents ever did. Felt free. Not because they felt bad, but because I knew I was enough. As Daniel and I left the garden holding hands, I felt different. Stronger. With that strong feeling in my heart, I looked forward to what would happen next. After the wedding, life felt brand new. Our wedding, even without Robert, Susan, and Mason, was perfect. But their Big Sur post, those smiling pictures on my wedding day, cut deep. I was done letting their choices make me sad. I focused on building an amazing life. Daniel and I started our new life together. I dove into my bakery work. I wanted to prove that I was successful and strong. The love from my new family, Daniel, Carol, and Thomas, gave me power to rise above the hurt and make a future where I knew I was valuable. Cake business exploded. A big restaurant group noticed my work and asked me to make desserts for all their restaurants in Seattle. I spent long nights baking and decorating. Soon my cakes were in food magazines. People from other cities started calling me. At a big baking competition, I won first place. When they called my name, I felt so proud. "This is for everyone who was ever ignored," I said when I accepted the trophy. More and more people wanted me to make cakes for them. I had to hire helpers to keep up with all the orders. Every cake I made felt like proof that I was talented and worthy. Not for my parents, but for myself. The success was mine. I built it from years of working hard and refusing to give up. Life with Daniel and his family was everything I'd ever dreamed of. We bought a small house in Seattle. It had a big kitchen where I could test new cake recipes while Daniel made dinner. Carol and Thomas came over all the time. Carol made Sunday breakfast for us every week. She hugged me every time she saw me. "Emma, your cakes are incredible," she would say, looking at pictures of my latest creations with real pride in her eyes. Thomas helped me with business stuff, teaching me how to handle money and grow my bakery. Their love was steady and real. It never had conditions. Daniel, my partner in everything, celebrated every win with me. From signing new contracts to late-night baking sessions, he was always there. "You're unstoppable," he would say, looking at me with so much love. Their support wrapped around me like a warm blanket, filling the hole my real family had left. Meanwhile, something was happening with my parents. Their Big Sur post caused problems for them. Their friends and neighbors in Seattle saw the contrast. My beautiful wedding photos, shared by Jennifer and guests, compared to their vacation bragging on my wedding day. People they knew started asking pointed questions. "Why weren't you at Emma's wedding?" mutual friends asked. Susan, who usually had excuses ready, struggled to answer. People stopped inviting them to things. Robert's friends at the bank started treating him differently. They lost respect in the community. Mason's life got harder too. Some of his gym clients stopped coming. People heard about what happened and didn't want to work with him anymore. His reputation took a hit. The community judged them harshly, not because I said anything bad about them, but because their own actions showed everyone what kind of people they were. I heard through mutual friends that Susan had cried, saying they didn't realize how much they'd hurt me. Mason, who always got everything he wanted, seemed shaken. His charm couldn't fix this. Their regret was obvious. But it was too late. I made a choice to cut them out of my life completely. Not because I was angry, but because I needed to protect my peace and happiness. I blocked their phone numbers and emails. I closed the door on a relationship that only ever brought me pain. My life with Daniel, my successful business, and the warmth of his family were more than enough for me. Felt lighter. Like I'd finally escaped from a dark shadow that had followed me my whole life. My success wasn't about proving them wrong. It was about proving to myself that I was valuable. I built a world where I was loved and appreciated for who I was. To everyone watching this video, thank you for listening to my story. The lesson is simple. Your worth doesn't come from people who ignore you. Set boundaries. Chase your dreams. Surround yourself with people who see your value. I'd love to hear what you think. Share your thoughts in the comments. And let's keep supporting each other. As I moved forward, I carried that freedom and strength with me everywhere I went.